Welcome! Right now, United States of America are only 2 years away from the next election. This is the perfect time to work in your 2024 election campaign. One man in particular may need some help. Actually, two. But we will save Biden for another day. Like his team cabbage, Biden is not even interesting enough to make it into a YouTube video. Today, we will talk about Trump. And we will talk about this book in particular, How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley. In this video, I will use the book to design an election campaign for Donald Trump. So finally, we're going to make 45th President of the United States claim his second term. In this video, we will look at the base of the Trump 2024 campaign, we'll design some slogans, rally chants, and so on. We will look at the general discussions for the interview and debates that Trump may face. While this video talks about the fascist ideas, it will not endorse any of them, as I personally believe that the fascism is the only one ideology that is worse than centrism, and probably the worst political ideology that we ever developed. So let's define the F word, shall we? Fascism is an umbrella term for the ideologies that are authoritarian, ultranationalistic, and militaristic. Fascism is far-right and often populist. One of the key characteristics of the fascism is the division of the society between us and them. But fascism is an umbrella term, it's not just one thing. A lot of different politicians and states deploy one or several components of the fascist state. It may be quite hard to spot the fascism behind the populist ideology and campaigns. As fascism is always riding on the populist ideas, I'm certain this campaign that I will develop today will be a winning one. So let us start, and first we will look at the chapter 1 of the book and also the main base of the campaign. Mythical past is one of the easiest fascism characteristics to spot. The political leader goes on the stage and they proclaim something. It goes like, "Our nation was glorious in the past, however, bad things happen and now our nation is at risk of a downfall. But now we have a strong and glorious leader who is capable of making hard decisions, taking lead and changing our society, reversing the clock and making our nation as great as it was before." Otherwise known as Make America Great Again, RCTM. And yes, of course, Trump already ran on the Mythical Past campaign in 2016 and he won. It is hard to say what exactly is a mythical past for Trump and when America was great. But this is the whole glory of the mythical past. It does not need to be precise. As Jason Stanley notes in the book, mythical past is intended to remain mythical. You don't need any specific timeline or dates to pinpoint in the history. But you still need to give your voters some idea of when the America was great and where are we going back to. I think War for Independence and the American Revolution make a perfect choice for the Trump's campaign. We can also reference American participation and victory in World War I, World War II. This campaign will also rely strongly on the Southern pride and will slightly change the history of the American Civil War. And of course, at the base of all that, American dream. We need to show America as a strong, free, independent nation, unarguably the best place in the world. And thus, the main slogan for our campaign will be "For America, strong and free." It also makes a perfect chant for your rallies, so Trump can go "America strong" and the crowd can go "America free" and they clap, 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 clap. Now we need to quickly go over some preconditions for the fascist state according to the book. There needs to be sufficient level of economic inequality. There needs to be some amount of the political stagnation, such as consistent change between neoliberal and neoconservative policies in the US. There needs to be a loss of the power of the nation compared to other nations. So rise of China as an economic and productive superpower also threatens US, which gives the conditions for this campaign. And one thing I forgot to put here, there should be sufficient inequality of values. And in US, inequality of values is divided between left and right, but more than that, it is divided between rich and poor, firstly. The super rich do not share the same values as the rest of the society, and the rest of the society is also split in two between right and left. And after the conditions are right, you need a strong populist leader to lead the fascist campaign. Since US is still a democracy, we will need to run our campaign according to democratic principles, so we better define our voter base. Our voter base is us, as fascist is usually dividing people between us and them. So in this case, us are conservative, of course, but also will be strongly pulling into center. Most of the voter base will be Christian and white, and also we will try to put some of the libertarian youth in a promise of freedom. And them, in case of the division, will be people who already do not vote for Trump. So in the case of the election campaign, we don't really care about those characters because they already don't vote for us. So we're looking at immigrants, specifically immigrants of color or a faith that is not Christian. We are also looking at the people of color, women who are not conforming to their women roles, and of course trans people, non-binary, and progressive left. So we will be pulling the separation between two groups in an attempt to make our voters vote for us and pull as much as we can from the center. Campaign campaign will strongly rely on the fascist principle number 2, propaganda. We will need propaganda in the media, but more importantly, we need propaganda to enforce the idea of the mythical past. The problem of choosing the age of mythical past to be in the American independence and American Civil War is that during these times, half of the population of US was still enslaved. Idea of the American dream and conquering of the Wild West just doesn't ring the same if you know about the slavery and the slaughtering of the First Nations in the lands of America. To avoid any trouble during debates and interviews or rallies in this campaign, Trump will need to follow this criteria. He will need to never mention racism, social activism, or labor movement that arose through the history of the US. If racism or slavery ever come up, Trump will need to say that the Lincoln was actually a Republican president. He will also need to steer the conversation in the idea of the American dream for all colors and freedom and equality across the board.
With the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done.
Trump is already really good in steering conversation in the direction that he wants. He's not obligated to talk about climate change or rise of the authoritarian powers in the world. He can talk about what he wants. According to Jason Stanley, this is typical for the populist fascist leaders. The populist fascist leaders are viewed by their base as more authentic, and Trump's base is not interested in how correct he is. They're more interested in how authentic he is and how anti-status quo he is. That will be important for promotion, debates, and media. Trump needs to remain authentic, and he can remain anti-intellectual. He doesn't ever have to be correct, he never needs to follow the evidence. Instead, he needs to put emphasis on how authentic and real he is. And if he ever needs to steer the conversation in his direction, say something that is obviously wrong, or alternate everything according to his mythical past, he just needs to repeat himself over and over. Repetition is important for both propaganda and the media coverage of this campaign to make sure that the voter base of Trump believes everything that he says is true.
We will stop the steal.
Promotion and debates for this campaign will also rely heavily on another fascist principle that is unreality. We need to promote conspiracy theories, confusion, and division among our groups. Conspiracies and confusion are especially important if Trump needs to promote himself or degrade his opponents. Think of conspiracy theories like QAnon, Deep State, or Pizzagate. Trump promotes himself as being more authentic, anti-state, and anti-status quo. So all those conspiracy theories promote him as being more authentic and independent from all those horrible things that happen in the conspiracy. And here is the core statement for the campaign. From the day of our independence as a sovereign nation, the United States are the home to the strongest nation under God. We believe in pride, we believe in freedom and hard work that inevitably pays off. And we believe in American dream. But we forgot our roots. Our politicians forgot the values of our Constitution. They erased the past glories of the nation and drug our history through mud. Our government has been ignoring the needs of the nation for far too long. I will rebuild this country as our founding fathers intended it to be, strong and free. And then we can all chant, America strong, America free, several times, just to make it stick. I had to move here because I'm out of space. But let us get into the meaty part, an actual campaign platform. Campaign platform is basically a ground on which the politicians build their political promises and layer policies. Campaign platform needs to talk about important points and attract the voters. Campaign platform for Trump needs to be happy families and freedom, preferably freedom of speech because this is a hot topic. So let us talk about the happy families. Straight off for happy families, we're jumping into fashion principle number 5. Sexual anxiety is important to promote the idea of purity. We're gonna talk about women, but women in fascism are viewed as tools of purity. Pure women are also promoting traditional values. We don't need to think about what is indeed traditional. We can choose tradition to be whatever fits our mythical past. Protection of women and family is important to impose more division between us and them, especially between women who conform to their gender roles and those who do not, and also all the women of color and transgender women who are, of course, not pure. Trans women basically denies any sort of purity that there is for the fascist ideology. This is just a side note. But of course, the fascism and the idea of sexual anxiety and purity and traditional values is here to appear to the center. Do you want your family to be happy? Do you want to raise your kids in a peaceful neighborhood? Well, vote for us. Happy families also hit into the principle 6 of the fascism hierarchy. And of course, hierarchies exist throughout our society, but especially for fascism, strong vertical hierarchies are important. We need to specifically divide to what is or isn't natural, what is or isn't right, what is or isn't pure. Hierarchies are also important for the division between us and them, because we, us, are on top of the hierarchy and them are at the bottom. There is the reason why we put the sexual anxiety in women and hierarchy under the same umbrella of the happy families. Trump can push the idea of what is natural in his campaign. It is natural for women to have kids. It is natural for women to submit to their husband. It is natural to have inequality in the family. It is natural, therefore, to have inequality in society. And who are we to change the natural flow of things? This idea of happy families, purity and traditional women, and submission of women to their husbands is important for the traditional Christian views. Idea of the hierarchy also fits really well with the survival of the fittest and to attract the libertarian youth. And yeah, of course, I also made a statement for the happy families. We abandoned the idea of nuclear family. We traded it for the hopes of an educated and new social structure. With it, we saw a downfall and degradation of our man and womanhood. Our kids are so confused they don't even know if they're a boy or a girl. We abandoned our women. We ripped motherhood away from their hands. We abandoned our men. We told them that they need to be ashamed of being a man, that they need to be weak. I will restore the strengths of the US family. I will help our women become who they are, mothers, daughters, and wives. I will help our men become strong. Together, we will restore our society that will be strong, that will be free from oppression of different ideologies. We will create happy families for the happy nation that is strong and free. And now, of course, let's talk about freedom and American dream. This is the whole half of our campaign platform, but it actually will cover a little bit more than the half of the volume. Principle number 7 of the fascism is victimhood. We need to convince our voter base to be scared and fearful, and we also need to impose some self-pity among our peers. We will try to divide people between us and them. We will promote the fear that somebody is coming for our voter base to rip off their happy families, perhaps, or their freedom. Principle number 7, victimhood, works really closely with propaganda and reality in principle number 4. Trump may use different conspiracy theories to promote fear among his election base. Of course, it will make a lot of far-right conservatives happy and pull his conservative base in. But it will also strike some of the center, especially through the peer pressure. In groups and societies which are already leaning conservative, we will create some pressure. We want our more far-right voters to pull in the center and more moderate right voters into our campaign, to make people feel isolated if they do not support our far conservative values. We will also promote the idea of law and order. That's principle of the fascism number 8, especially law and order in the face of Trump. Because our voter base will already feel scared and oppressed, we want a strong leader that is willing to make hard choices. And of course, this is Trump. We want strong, functioning government, and this idea will be appealing to the center, conservative, but also working class. We want to look at the working class and divide them away from the progressive leftist values. We want the working class to think that they want some law and order. They want working, functioning government in the face of a Trump. Government that works just as hard as they do.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action.
Freedom will also cover the fascist principle number 9, division between rural and city areas. Trump already has poor support in cosmopolitan and liberal cities. He may as well use this as an advantage and divide his voter base between pure rural community and sinful cities. Cities are full of immigrants and those white-collar workers that do nothing all day. But of course, rural areas are pure. They're just as pure as the women from the Happy Families section. So now you can see like all this fits together really well in the use of debates and different interviews. Trump can jump from one fascist principle to another and tie them into one network of connected arguments. And promotion of freedom also includes the fascist principle number 2, or the work will set you free. The idea of work in fascism can be used strongly to divide us versus them base. But also, work will set you free fits perfectly with the idea of American dream. The fact that you can just work hard and achieve whatever you want. But behind it, Trump will hide the idea that inequality is not a thing. It's just simply not real. Everybody who is not successful in our American society is just lazy pest. And what are we going to do with those lazy pests? I don't know. We'll find out in 10 years after he's elected. Because the idea of the hard work fits so well with the idea of the American dream, Trump will pull a lot of the center voters using the idea of hard work and promoting American dream itself. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the American voters will not even notice the trick. And of course, the statement on the freedom. The security and well-being of our nation are under threat. External forces are rotting our society and government from the inside. But the American dream is not dead. The hardworking men and women of this country are still standing. We are a free country. Our founding fathers intended this country to be free. They intended our speech to be free. They intended our religion to be free. I will return our freedoms that are being ripped from the citizens of this nation. I will put America first. For America, strong and free.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
So here we go. This covers the base for the campaign for 2024 Trump election. It uses this book, How Fascism Worked by Jason Stanley. But the question remains, why use fascism in the democratic state of America? Jason Stanley suggests the idea that the fascism is appearing in America because, one, the conditions are right, and second, because there is a division of power. Fascism can be used by conservative politicians to keep funneling money into the pockets of the rich. In my personal opinion, I also feel like conservatives in America are losing some of their powers. Internet is basically free education, and universities are also leaning liberal. Right now, youth is more progressive and radical. And even if the youth of the America is not sitting on the left wing, they're usually sitting in the anti-state sector of the political compass. All of that means that conservatives need to change their strategy. And of course, conservatives can start doing actual work and suggesting more conservative progressive policies, but this is too hard. Instead, they can choose to run on the fascist base and after that modify institutions like it was already done with the Supreme Court. But they can put more power into the hands of governments and especially president, all while promoting freedom. I will not be surprised that election campaign in 2024 for US will actually go into the fascist direction, even if the Trump is not running. But of course, Trump is a populist, and he's the perfect choice for the Conservative Party to run to gain them more power in the future. So yeah, fascism doesn't simply have to be about the supreme race and conquering the world like it was in 20th century. And if you like this video, I plan to turn it into this series where I discover different political ideologies across the political compass. I don't think it will always be a fair discussion because I do think that some political ideologies are harmful, but we'll certainly look at different books across left, right, up and down of the political compass. So yeah, maybe subscribe so you see more of that sort of stuff in the future. If you have any specific ideologies or books that you'd like me to cover in this series, leave me a comment below. Otherwise, see you on the next book. Imagine Trump runs in 2024 and this is his actual election campaign. Would I be surprised? I don't think so.